Tonight, police in hospital with COVID after working on the protest front line. Melbourne left behind as Sydney fast-tracks the road to freedom. Grand final breaches blamed for an alarming surge in hospital case numbers. Victoria facing parcel chaos as unions threaten major strike action. And Toby Green's tribunal penalty doubled as new cat Eddie Betts reveals he wanted to stay with the Blues.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. First to breaking news tonight, with police confirming 2 officers are in hospital with COVID after working at anti-lockdown protests. Chanel Vella joins us now, and Chanel, one of the officers is in a serious condition.
Well, that's right, Mitch. One of the officers was transported to hospital this morning and he is receiving support to breathe tonight. There are reports the 2 members who contracted the virus were unvaccinated. They work at a station in the northwest alongside 25 other officers who are vaccinated. They've all tested negative so far and remain in isolation.
It heightens the need for us to focus on making sure they're protected at work, that they have adequate PPE, and the importance of focusing on their safety, because we don't want them in hospital. We want them out on the front line so they continue to support the community, as indeed I'm sure the community wants them to.
The Police Association has urged all members to get vaccinated as soon as possible. Mitch.
Chanel Vella, thank you. It has been another grim day in our COVID battle, with an alarming spike in the number of hospital cases and more than 1,600 new Delta infections, a quarter of them under 20 years old. It means Victoria is falling behind while New South Wales is fast-tracking its plan to come out of lockdown.
Our city streets are empty and our office blocks have been abandoned.
Office occupancy in Melbourne CBD has plummeted to just 6%, so it's an incredibly drastic reduction in the number of people who are currently in offices in Melbourne.
But our active cases are surging.
We're facing the highest case numbers we've ever done in Victoria.
1,638 new infections, the second highest daily total in the pandemic so far, with no sign we've reached the peak of our 3rd wave. And there were 2 more deaths.
Well, the greatest way to get freedom in Victoria is to go and get the first dose and then get the second dose of any of the 3 vaccines.
New South Wales is now 70% double vaccinated, and its new Premier is fast-tracking their roadmap out. From Monday, 10 people are allowed in homes. When we hit 70% later this month, no visitors will be allowed in homes. 30 people can gather outdoors in New South Wales, only 10 here. Restaurants, cafes, retail, hairdressers and cinemas all reopen with density limits. Here, restaurants and cafes can only open outdoors. Hairdressers can only serve 5 customers who must be fully vaxxed. In New South Wales, weddings can go ahead with 100 people from Monday. Here, they're capped at 50 and must be held outdoors.
Other states can make their own decisions. That's a matter for them.
At 80% in New South Wales, 20 are allowed in homes, 50 outdoors, and fully vaccinated workers can return to the office and ditch masks. At 80% here, 10 people are allowed in homes, 30 outdoors. Fully vaxxed workers can return but must wear masks in the office.
And I want this to be a sign of hope to the rest of the country, particularly those in Victoria.
But what New South Wales is yet to reveal is how many people will end up in hospital or die.
These changes today are measured, sensible, and ensure that we open up in a very safe way.
Based on our current vaccination rate, Victoria should meet the 80% double dose target by November 7. By then, New South Wales would have been enjoying their 80% freedoms for 18 days.
This is what happens when you plan well and manage well the infrastructure of what a pandemic needs. New South Wales has done that. We expect that to be done here in Victoria too.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
There's been a surge in the number of COVID patients in Melbourne hospitals, with dozens more admitted over the past 24 hours. Paul Dowsley is at the Royal Children's Hospital this evening, and Paul, parents and children remain in isolation after a scare there.
But there is some good news, Mitch. Thankfully, there are no more cases tied to the Tier 1 cancer ward here, just that parent that we learned about late yesterday. And last night, some of the outdoor areas of the hospital were declared a Tier 2 site. Now, this is from a couple of hours back on September 26. So that is a 10-day lag to get onto the exposure site list. Today, we learned the hospital is caring for 4 young COVID patients that have tested positive in recent days and weeks, as staff here do everything they can to stop the spread. Victoria's active cases are now beyond 15,000. That's more than twice our second wave peak.
Pressure on our health system is increasing and it will continue to increase.
A sharp increase in hospitalisations, another 39 yesterday. Now 564 COVID patients in hospital. Intensive care patients are up 22% in a day. Those on ventilators up a whopping 40%. It's suspected some caught the virus at illegal grand final parties.
It is really concerning because there's a lag between when we see the cases and when we see people end up in hospital.
When we see days of 1,700 cases, the real worry about that is that that's 80 or 90 people who are going to end up in hospital down the track, and the same the next day, and the same the next day, and the same the next day.
In a sign of the strain, Nick Ashman was in Mulgrave Private Hospital on Monday with a heart issue after a Pfizer jab. He says he was left in a room with a COVID patient for at least an hour.
I just feel like it's just a terrible system where that's allowed to happen.
It means he needs to isolate for 2 weeks and can't see specialists. The hospital insists it acted quickly once it knew of the patient's positive result.
It's gut-wrenching and it's just so wrong.
And students who attended an illegal 16th birthday party are reported to have contracted the virus, which continues to infect younger victims. Of today's new cases,
almost a quarter of those are for people aged in their 20s.
Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
And a new push is underway for Victorians to get the Moderna vaccine. Christy Cooper has been investigating, and Christy, the Chief Health Officer, says in some ways it's the best vaccine.
Mitch, Moderna was late to the party here in Australia, but we now have plenty of supply. The challenge is getting jabs into arms quickly enough. Texts were sent out to thousands of Victorians this afternoon reminding people that walk-in Moderna appointments are available all this week. But the Department of Health says it wasn't sent by them, it was sent by the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions using geo-targeting. The Chief Health Officer, Brett Sutton, took to Twitter saying while all Australian vaccines are safe and effective, Moderna may be a nose in front. Overseas, however, and Denmark and Sweden have announced they're pausing Moderna for anyone aged under 18. Our health team says it is a safe vaccine. There's a very rare side effect of heart inflammation that's usually mild, and it affects about 1 in 30,000 people.
All of them result in a 90% reduction in ending up in hospital, ending up in intensive care or losing your life. That's the point of similarity between them, and that is by far and away the most fundamental fact.
Professor Cowie says there are no plans to change recommendations here in Australia. Mitch?
Christy Cooper in the city, thank you. Transport workers are threatening major strike action that's set to disrupt parcel deliveries across Victoria. Jade Vincent has the details, and Jade, they're planning a national day of action.
Mitch, up to 9,000 union members at 5 major transport operators right around the country will all walk off the job if these companies don't promise them job security by next week. This will affect deliveries from Toll, FedEx, StarTrack, Linfox and BevChain. So not just parcels but supermarket stock as well. Then there's almost 50 Victorian school teachers prepared to take industrial action if their pay deal isn't met. Just as Victorian students begin to return to the classroom, thousands of government school teachers are vowing to go on strike.
And that's because we're at crisis point. The workloads that teachers, that principals and support staff are under are immense. Teachers are working 15 hours unpaid hours every week.
97% of 50,000 Victorian union members support the idea of industrial action to secure a new deal.
I would just respectfully say that now's not the time for industrial action. Now's the time for us to come together, work together.
Their enterprise bargaining agreement demands include a pay rise, but the union won't publicly say how much. A funding boost to secure more staff and resources, and reduced hours teaching in the classroom.
They're doing their planning, their preparation, the assessment of student learning. And that has to be brought in into the 38-hour week, and we need more teachers to do that, and we need a reduction in face-to-face teaching to do that.
Despite almost 2 years of homeschooling, some parents are understanding.
I really believe more than ever that teachers deserve to get more money.
They have been brilliant the last 2 years. We need a fair outcome for our teachers, education support staff and principals, and I'm confident that's what will be delivered.
As lockdown edges closer to lifting, other industries are also threatening to spoil the party. The Maritime Union is carrying out 12-hour work stoppages at the docks, and 300 staff at Cadbury's Ringwood factory will strike tomorrow over the casualisation of the workforce. Jade Vincent, 7 News.
The Prime Minister says it's time the country moves on from the pandemic as disaster support payments start to be wound back. Labor's concerned they're ending too soon and many workers will end up on JobSeeker.
After months in the darkness of lockdown,
The light at the end of that tunnel is now very, very close.
and the light on the COVID disaster payments is about to dim.
These are emergency payments, and these emergency payments have to end.
From Sunday night in New South Wales, and when other states hit 70% vaccinations, the 2 million Australians receiving the payments will have to reapply each week. Until at 80%, they taper out from $750 and $450 to a flat $450 in the first week, $320 in the second, then gone.
The experience of the Australian economy has been that when restrictions ease, the jobs come back.
But for those whose jobs don't come back, it's $320 a week unemployment benefits.
In relation to JobSeeker payment, what we encourage people to do is get ready now.
Through a MyGov account, registering with ID, details of your last employer, and bank account details. Labor and some economists, though, say extra financial support will be needed to smooth the transition from locked down to opened up.
Whether it's JobKeeper or the COVID disaster payments or other kinds of support, we need to make sure that it's tailored to the economic conditions.
Some sectors will need ongoing support because their recovery path is harder and longer.
But the Prime Minister says it's time for the taxpayer tap to be turned off.
We want to see Australians now not be reliant on the economic supports of government.
Now expecting businesses themselves to keep the lights on. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Daniel Andrews is digging in his heels, refusing to confirm or deny if he's facing an anti-corruption probe over a firefighter's pay deal. The Premier was asked if he'd ever sent a text message to union boss Peter Marshall.
No, I can't recall.
Mr Andrews did say he's cooperated fully with IBAC over Labor's branch stacking scandal. A rapist has been sentenced to 12 years jail for sickening attacks on 2 women walking alone in Elwood. Justin Matheson managed to hide his vile crimes for almost a decade before the law caught up with him.
Justin Matheson preyed on his victims on walking tracks near their Bayside homes. He was 23 when he grabbed a woman in February 2012 and raped her on a footpath. 7 months later, Matheson dragged a woman off the Bay Trail in Elwood, repeatedly assaulting her as he told her not to scream. Matheson's vile crime sparked an urgent manhunt, but he wasn't caught until 8 years later, when his DNA was matched to evidence from the crime scenes. After pleading guilty to rape, Matheson was today sentenced to 12 years in prison for what the judge described as every woman's worst nightmare. You preyed on 2 women 7 months apart for your own sexual gratification. Your serious offending was a terrifying ordeal for the victims, which has had a profound effect on their lives. Both victims say they noticed Matheson along the Bay Trail before they were later ambushed by him. Judge Amanda Chambers says their sense of safety has been forever affected. Matheson has schizophrenia and a personality disorder, making him vulnerable in prison. With time served, he could be released in 7.5 years. Estelle Greepink, 7 News.
AFL champion Eddie Betts has spoken for the first time as a cat, revealing that he'd wanted to stay with Carlton, but the club didn't have a football role for him. The 34-year-old also opened up on his new role with the AFL, fighting racism on the field.
Presented an off-field role in navy blue, the lure of coaching has taken Eddie Betts down the highway in blue and white.
Carlton did offer me to work up in the marketing and community, but my passion was football and I wanted to coach. It was pretty sad not to get that at the Carlton Football Club.
Betts will combine development coaching with Geelong with a likely role at league headquarters, continuing the fight against racism.
I feel like I got a bigger role to play now that I'm not playing AFL footy within Australia, to use my voice to help stamp out racism.
He'll also reunite with superstar cat Patrick Dangerfield, who remains in debt from their time at the Crows.
Paddy offered me a ride in his boat, and he said that to me 9 years ago at Crows when he got me there. I still haven't been in the boat yet, so I'm hoping that I'll get on the boat sooner or later.
Dangerfield responding on social media. Betts will begin his new career in January, but any chance of a job in the top seat might need some convincing.
I said that to my wife last night, talked to my partner Anna, and said, what do you think about a senior coach? And she said no. So basically played that off the cards.
Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Good luck, Eddie. One of the AFL's best players will miss a fair chunk of next season. Tim Watson, it's a massive blow to Toby Green.
It is, Mitch. The AFL Appeals Board has come down hard on the Star Giant. Chief football reporter Tom Brown covered the hearing, and Tom, Green has been hit with a 6-match ban.
Tim, the infamous ump bump was almost a month ago. The Court of Appeal sat this morning for almost 5 hours. The decision on appeal, 6 weeks. The initial decision was 3 weeks. It means Green will miss 5 weeks, the balance of his sentence at the start of next season. It's almost a quarter of the season. I've spoken to Toby Green's management tonight, Paul Connors, as well as the Giants. They'll cop this. There's no ill feeling. They'll cop this decision and now move on. It's got implications potentially for the captaincy at GWS. I'll explain those implications shortly in sport. Tim.
Thanks, Tom. Also coming up, the Blues score a big win at the trade table, and Jeff Kennett's talking tough too at the Hawks. Mitch, all that more coming up.
OK, Tim, we'll see you then. A desperate dad is pleading for answers over the death of his son. Next, the questions a former top sporting coach wants answered. Also, why Melbourne drivers are being warned to brace for a petrol hit. A bull shark in the bay sends swimmers scrambling at Albert Park. A singing superstar bound for Melbourne. And later, an allergy rethink in our schools. A push for a dramatic change in the way we battle nut allergies. Petrol prices around the world are going up, in some cities nudging record highs. Blake Johnson joins us now, and Blake, local fuel experts say we should fill up as soon as possible.
Pete, the average price for unleaded at the moment is around that $1.50 a litre mark in Melbourne, similar to what we're seeing at this BP in South Melbourne, but there are predictions that could soon be up around the $1.70 a litre mark as an average. The fuel price, so the oil price is at a 4-year high, and as Sydney and Melbourne come out of lockdown and we head towards Christmas, demand is expected to surge in the coming months. Add to that a global fuel shortage. It's been a really tricky few weeks for the global energy industry. Cities like London and Delhi are about to break all-time record highs for their fuel prices, and motoring groups in Australia warn we could see a similar price trend here over the coming months. Pete?
Blake Johnson in South Melbourne, thank you. The teaching registration of a controversial Fitzroy principal has been temporarily suspended while authorities investigate his school's operation during lockdown. Timothy Berryman repeatedly invited parents to send their children to the Fitzroy Community School when Melbourne was in lockdown. The school was linked to a COVID outbreak with dozens of cases. One of Australia's most experienced sport coaches is desperate for answers over the death of his eldest son. COVID border bans have stopped him travelling to Byron Bay, where his son died while on a travelling adventure.
Lockdown left Ian Stacker helpless after his eldest son Jackson went missing in northern New South Wales. The body of the 25-year-old was found in a paddock.
Just the worst possible feelings you could have.
Jackson Stacker was last seen alive at Byron Bay on July the 22nd. Later that day, he drove his camper van 40 kilometres north to a rest stop at Sleepy Hollow. His family reported him missing in late August after someone contacted Ian Stacker wishing to buy the camper van, which was still parked at the rest stop.
He had indicated to us that he was going to leave Byron and start heading north.
Police found the body of Jackson Stacker the next day. The autopsy on Jackson Stacker was inconclusive. New South Wales Police are treating his death as being non-suspicious, with a brief being prepared for the coroner. Ian Stacker was desperate to fly to Byron Bay but was blocked by COVID border bans. He wants more done to eliminate the possibility that his son was killed.
It's really difficult to accept that he would take his own life, and so we just want to leave no stone unturned in trying to find out whether anybody saw him with somebody else on that particular day.
A two-time NBL Coach of the Year, Ian Stacker has received strong support from the basketball community.
I'm certain I'm damaged goods forever. I don't know how it's going to impact me forever, but I know I won't be the same again.
Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
A bull shark has sent swimmers rushing back to shore at Albert Park. It's believed the shark was just under 2 metres long and was close to Kerford Road Pier when it was spotted circling the area. It's rare to see bull sharks in Port Phillip Bay. Parents of teenagers, mark your diaries. Billie Eilish has announced an Australian tour next year. One of the world's biggest stars will perform at Rod Laver Arena on September 22nd. Tickets are on sale next week. Billie's video for her song Bad Guy has been watched more than 1 billion times on YouTube. Jane Bunn joins us now, and Jane, that wind was certainly chilly today.
Mitch, it felt like less than 10 degrees in that wind. Very different to the warmth of last night. In Northerly, it was still up on 18 degrees at midnight. Then the rain arrived. In the early hours of the morning, we picked up 2 to 9 millimetres across town. That brought a colder day to stay. It was 9 degrees at dawn and only reached 16, so warmer at midnight than any time during the day. Next, we head into warmer and sunny days. I'll show you how long that'll last after sport, Mitch.
That sounds a bit better. Thank you, Jane. 2 midwives are facing manslaughter charges over a home birthing tragedy in Melbourne's northeast. Details are ahead. Also, meat prices under pressure in a pandemic price hike for Christmas. A historic vaccine about to be rolled out to billions in a world first. And firefighters blown away by a smoke explosion. 2 midwives are facing manslaughter charges over the death of a mum in a home birthing tragedy in Watsonia. A court's been told the pair missed vital warning signs and the mum might have survived if she'd been in a hospital.
Caroline Lovell died after delivering her second daughter in a water bath at her Watsonia home in 2012. Midwives Gay DeManuel and Melody Byrne were by her side and are now fighting a charge of negligent manslaughter. Ms Lovell remained in the water bath for an hour after delivery, unaware she was bleeding to death. Today, intensive care specialist Professor John Cade told the court he believes she suffered from a rare amniotic fluid embolism. Ms Lovell fainted, then told her husband she thought she was dying. Both signs the doctor says that something was wrong. I think at 9:50 a.m. the first clue was there, but it wasn't until 10:10 that the clues were much more dramatic. At this stage, there should have been a red flag, but women in childbirth can experience restlessness, agitation, and it's hard to disentangle them. Professor Cade said in hospital, an emergency team would have been there within seconds. There's no guarantee, but the survival in hospital is probably 90% nowadays. After hearing from 24 witnesses, the committal hearing will end tomorrow. Then Magistrate Peter Reardon will determine whether there's enough evidence for the women to stand trial. Jodie Lee, 7 News.
Doctors have made a direct pitch to members of Melbourne's Greek community, pleading for them to get vaccinated. Dr Alex Paspaliasis says the chances of getting sick from the vaccine is the same as winning Tats Lotto. The world's first malaria vaccine is set to be rolled out to billions of people. After more than a century of trying, it's hoped the vaccine will save the lives of tens of thousands of children every year.
It's an ancient disease and still one of the deadliest in the world. Australia was declared malaria-free in 1981, but each year globally the parasite, spread by mosquitoes, kills more than 400,000 people. 2/3 are African children under the age of 5.
This vaccine is a gift to the world, but its value will be felt most in Africa.
This is orders of magnitude more complex than a COVID vaccine or any of the other vaccines we have today.
The RTS-S vaccine, more than 30 years in the making, has already been given to 800,000 kids in Ghana, Kenya and Malawi since a pilot program began in 2019. Now the green light for widespread use. The vaccine has limited efficacy, preventing 40% of malaria cases, but will save lives.
We expect many more African children will be protected from malaria and grow into healthy and productive adults.
We still have a very long road to travel, but this is a long stride down that road.
In London, Sarah Greenhalgh, 7 News.
A classroom fight escalated in Texas when a teenager pulled a gun and started shooting. 4 people were wounded, including a 15-year-old boy who's fighting for life. Video from inside the school is now on social media. The 18-year-old suspect handed himself in after a long manhunt. Prince Andrew now has access to a critical document he hopes will shield him from a sex assault lawsuit. Lawyers say his accuser, Virginia Giuffre, signed a deal when she settled a claim with deceased pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. They say she agreed not to sue anyone else connected to him, including Prince Andrew. Ms Giuffre's legal team says the document will be irrelevant. And firefighters in Oregon are lucky to be alive after a blaze inside a row of shops erupted into a smoke explosion. Crews ran into the building through heavy fire before the blast blew out windows and surged onto the street. The firefighters were taken to hospital. There's a warning tonight. Australians may soon have to fork out more for meat when we open up. COVID-related shortages have led to higher prices, but restaurateurs say they'll wear the cost for now.
The pub steak under fire. The bill for meat deliveries
shocked in a bad way.
Up dramatically, meaning a top steak could cost you $60.
The cuts of meat that we use have gone up 30 to 40% since lockdown commenced. Look, we'll try and absorb it.
More than a cut above. At the butcher, spring lamb is in short supply.
The lambs are pretty scarce, good young lambs, and we've got to source it from wherever we can.
The problem starts with stock in the paddock. Beef production is down 18% from last year, at its lowest level since 1972.
It's becoming a bit of an issue with price rises. Just struggle. People just don't come and buy as much as they should.
COVID restrictions on abattoirs crippling, border closures and caps on foreign workers, putting meat processing in the freezer.
We've 25,000 men and women sitting on the tarmac in 10 Pacific nations, been there since September, and we still can't get the premiers and chief health officers to give the health orders to let them come in.
My advice to consumers out there is to continue to be talking to your local independent retail butcher and making sure that you've got a very clear understanding with your orders for Christmas.
Otherwise, it could be a lean season. Serena Andaloro, 7 News.
There are new calls tonight to overturn a ban on nuts in Victorian schools. Next, what leading health experts say we should be doing. Also, the new Victorian technology that could revolutionise medical imaging, and the online shopping game changer from one of the nation's biggest retailers. Breast cancer could be diagnosed earlier thanks to a revolutionary new microscope slide. Scientists have discovered a way to detect cancer cells during the very early stages of the disease.
A life-saving breakthrough in the fight against breast cancer.
Looking under the microscope and automatically seeing cancer cells light up as a different colour was quite amazing, actually.
Scientists have modified the surface of microscope slides, reducing the time it takes to detect deadly cells.
What we've done is actually develop a nanofabricated coating for just the humble glass microscope slide, which turns it into a sensor.
So impressive, they say it's like watching colour television after only seeing black and white. Early detection helped Leslie Gillam overcome her breast cancer diagnosis.
When they investigated further, they found multiple tumours. So the fact that they detected the first one early meant that they then obviously found the others.
The slides are made in Melbourne and will complement the technology already used to diagnose breast and other cancers, rolled out in the next 3 to 5 years.
What we need to do now is expand, look at more breast cancer cohorts, do prospective trials to show that this is actually really helping with get that confidence for diagnosis.
What I would love to see is to have these slides in every lab in the world.
Ashley Kanowski, 7 News.
After a tough week, there has been some reprieve on the share market. Finance editor Gemma Acton has more.
Thanks, Peter. Well, in what's been a soggy week for local shares, it is nice to report that the ASX 200 today added 50 points to close at 7,257. After a tough few weeks for technology shares, which often do worse when fears over a pickup in inflation are on the rise, they regained some lost ground today. The Aussie dollar is perfectly flat for the session, buying around 72.8 US cents, while iron ore is also largely unchanged. And after a 20% lift in home prices in the past year, the value of Australia's housing market is now more than $9 trillion. That is a staggering $1 trillion more than in April. Peter.
Gemma Acton reporting. Schools are being told to avoid blanket bans on foods like nuts and eggs as part of a new allergy advice. National guidelines now recommend risk minimisation strategies like clearly labelling children's food.
For decades, going nut-free was seen as a way to keep schools safe. But the experts say blanket bans don't work.
It's practically impossible. Who's going to police that the child next to you doesn't have milk baked into their bread, for example?
New guidelines say schools shouldn't ban foods or claim to be nut-free. Instead, they should be allergy-aware and implement practices that minimise risk.
If it's a very young child, for example, maybe having separate allergy zones where that child isn't necessarily exposed to the food that the other children may be eating, and then having very good training for the staff.
Among the other recommendations, teaching children they shouldn't share food.
We can't move to banning these foods. We need to create a whole safety net of strategies to protect these children.
It comes as a new allergy cure is put to the test. Researchers using a tiny dose of flour to treat preschool kids unable to eat nuts.
Do you feel okay? Do I have an itchy mouth?
An Australian first trial giving new hope to allergy sufferers.
Is potentially a game changer is that we move towards an approach where there's options and choice for families in how they want to manage a food allergy.
Estelle Greepink, 7 News.
Westfield shopping centres have launched a new click and collect and delivery service, bringing products from more than 100 retailers together. Westfield Direct will allow customers to pick up their purchases from one centralised location within 37 centres across Australia. Everything from fashion to beauty to home accessories is available. Sport is next with Tim Watson. And Tim, forget the Kennett curse. It might be time for a Kennett clean-out.
Mitch, the Hawks president, has written to all members telling them to brace for a rocky trade period. Also coming up, the Blues land a rising midfield star from out west. More trouble at Collingwood, which has tonight been labelled a catastrophe. The extreme lengths the Aussies are willing to go to in the Ashes, and play it again, Sam. Our mighty Matildas stars for Chelsea. Welcome back. Hawthorn members have been told to brace for a tumultuous trade period. Mitch Cleary has more on this developing story. Mitch, a shock could be on the way.
Tim, Hawthorn fans have been keeping an eye on their club all trade period, and tonight they've been left under no illusions. They've been wanting to know Jack Gunson, Jay O'Meara, Tom Mitchell or Chad Wingard. Would any of those players be put up for trade to fast-track the rebuild under Sam Mitchell? And tonight, in an email from Jeff Kennett to the members, he has said this. He has said that we do all considerations will be made around their trade and draft moves, so that is one for the Hawks fans to keep an eye on tonight. The club tonight privately saying they are not driving any of their players out of the footy club, but they will be all ears to options from other clubs. In other moves confirmed today, Sam Petrevski-Seton from Carlton to West Coast. Tim O'Brien and Lewis Young landed... Tim O'Brien at the Bulldogs, Lewis Young at the Carlton Football Club, and it was also a very happy 22nd birthday for a new Blue. The trade period's most expensive deal confirmed. Fremantle's Adam Chera off to Carlton.
Looking at Carlton from afar, I felt like they were the best fit for me. They were my number one priority, and I really liked all the changes and the excitement of the group there.
The exciting midfielder sent to the Blues in exchange for pick 6 and a future third rounder, having flirted with a move to the reigning premiers.
Obviously, the other party, Melbourne, had a very impressive pitch, and they did make it more difficult by that, but couldn't be happy with where I've ended up.
There's more turmoil at Collingwood. President Mark Corder announcing he will step down from his position in December, paving the way for a Jeff Brown takeover with legal papers served today.
It is a corporate catastrophe. More than likely, it will end up in the Supreme Court again. Another waste of members' money by the club not accepting what members want.
And new Geelong development coach Eddie Betts wants the Cats to recruit his former Crows teammate Tyson Stengel. The young forward starring in South Australia this year after he was dumped by Adelaide in March following drug possession charges.
I've spoken to him about my issues. I was locked up, at a young age when I was playing AFL footy, the famous boat cruise with the Carlton Football Club, and, I guess that's when the penny dropped for myself.
Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Late today, the Giants emerged as a major player in the trade period, returning to Chief Football reporter Tom Brown. Tom, what can you tell us?
See, we flagged earlier in the week that Rory Lobb could be on the move. This afternoon, there's strong momentum now for a move for Lobb back to the Giants, which is where he was originally from. It begs one of the biggest questions this trade period. Could the Giants captain, Stephen Coniglio, return to where he's from, Perth, and indeed Fremantle? He's recently engaged and would like eventually perhaps to move back to WA. I've just spoken to Coniglio's manager, Tom Petroro, says there's no possibility of a move for Coniglio back to Fremantle. He's had multiple discussions, Petroro, with the Giants this week, yesterday and today. He's a highly valued member of the team, and he'll definitely be staying at the Giants. Moving on to Toby Green, touted as a potential captain to replace Coniglio next season. They'll just wait for the dust to settle on this 6-week suspension now. He'll miss Green up to a quarter of next season, which isn't ideal if he's to retain the captaincy. I think there's a view tonight, Tim, that Coniglio could retain the Giants' captaincy. And just finally, some important pay talks tomorrow between the Players Association and the AFL. It's the Players Association's view tonight that the AFL finances are relatively healthy, notwithstanding all the COVID issues. Gil McLaughlin's done a good job with the money this year, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. Aussie spinner Nathan Lyon is willing to quarantine anywhere, anytime to get a 5-test Ashes series away. Lyon is expecting to isolate for tests in Brisbane and Perth because of closed borders.
It's a pretty small price to pay to go out there and have the opportunity to play cricket for Australia. So I've got no dramas doing quarantine.
Lyon is one dismissal away from 400 test wickets. One of cricket's fiercest rivalries resumes tonight with Australian women taking on India. Seven's Abby Jolmy and Brad Hodge have more.
Thanks, Tim. Yes, we're down to the business end of the multi-format series between Australia and India. Hodgie, we've had the ODIs, we've had the test, and now it all comes down to the T20s.
Yeah, this is the exciting part. Last time these two teams met, it was in front of 86,000 people at the MCG, and it was the Healy show. Wonder whose show it will be tonight, Abs.
Yeah, that's right. It's stacked with stars. Elise Perry taking another milestone in this game, but we just saw there Taylor Volemic, one of the fastest bowlers in the world. We're going to see her in action. Maybe some debutants for Australia as well. That's all coming up at 7:30 on 7. We can't wait.
The Group 1 winning jockey Ben Melham has been hit with a further 3-month ban for his role in the illegal Airbnb party on the Mornington Peninsula. Melham's 3-month ban was doubled after stewards found he provided false or misleading information during the hearing. The ban means Melham won't return to racing until March. Matilda's superstar Sam Kerr has continued her scoring spree, this time in Chelsea's Champions League campaign.
It's gorgeous! What an opening goal for Chelsea! And who other than Sam Kerr?
Chelsea's clash with Wolfsburg ended in a 3-3 draw, Mitch, and that is sport.
Been a big day indeed. Thank you very much, Tim. Jane is next with the forecast. Jane, what's in store to end the week?
Well, Mitch, there's lots of sunshine for the next 2 days, and I make the most of Saturday with what's coming on Sunday. The full details are next.
Tonight on the latest from 7 News, the cruise industry calls for clarity when they hope to sail ships back into Australian ports. And live to London as the Queen steps out tonight, and new revelations about how she's helping Prince Andrew with his legal battle. Join me for the latest from 7 News after the cricket.
Hello again. The overnight rain cleared to sunshine this morning. Now that rain let the temperature drop from 18 at midnight to just 9 at dawn. The morning was nice if you were out of the wind, the sunshine making it feel quite warm. Then cloud thickened this afternoon, stopping it rising any higher than 16. Most remained dry, but it did bring the odd shower. And one of these in the late afternoon lit up the sky in Mornington. Cloud rebuilt across southern Victoria, but didn't make it far into the north of the state. Showers are mainly about south central and western parts of Gippsland, and they are clearing out now. A cold front brought our cooler temperatures that is now moving out over the Tasman Sea, while a trough brings a cool change as it races up the east coast. Sydney reached 31 before plummeting down to 18. Next we have high pressure quickly moving on through, but the next cold front is not far away. While we have that high overhead, it is nice. Friday and Saturday are lovely in Melbourne with lots of sunshine and warmer days. Then it rapidly changes again around 6 p.m. on Saturday. The next cold front brings a band of rain followed by widespread showers. There's alpine snow and wintry hail, so we have warmth and sunshine on Saturday followed by a cold and showery Sunday. Around the nation tomorrow, warm and mostly sunny in Brisbane. Sydney is a milder 22 under mostly cloudy skies. Fog then sunshine for Canberra. There's the odd shower in Hobart. It's a top of 19. Adelaide, lots of sunshine. It's a lovely 22. Perth, showers. They clear out during the morning. To Victoria, it is a cold start. We've got areas of frost near the ranges and in these parts of the north. Areas of fog too ahead of a pleasant spring day. It is mild to warm and mostly sunny with light to moderate northwesterly winds. So it is jumper weather in the frost and fog at first, and then t-shirts in the warm sunshine. Closer in, it's a lovely day across Melbourne. It quickly warms up after a cold start. If you are in Yarra Glen, good luck dressing for freezing fog at dawn, then 20 in the afternoon. The day has lots of sunshine, just some wispy high cloud overhead. The city begins on 7, it quickly warms up to 21. A pleasant Friday, that is, mostly sunny. To the 8-day outlook, Saturday is also lovely. We reach a top of 23. I'd planned for outdoor activities to be before 5 p.m. because it will rapidly cool down after that, and we have rain developing at night on Saturday night, mainly in eastern suburbs. Then steady rain breaks to hit and miss showers on a cold Sunday. We're looking at 3 to 15 millimetres across the Melbourne region and a top of just 15. It turns dry during the afternoon and evening. Some dry breaks in there. The morning is the wettest part. As we go into Monday, it's 15. There's drizzle in the morning. It turns dry in the afternoon, but still quite cloudy. Then we warm up once again. Here's our sunny stretch, 20 and 22 mid next week. Then there is another big rain system on the way. It could be a stormy end to Wednesday. Lots of wet weather on Thursday into Friday. Before tomorrow, it's lovely. It quickly warms up to 21. Lots of sunshine, Mitch.
If you do get a bit of sun in lockdown, the UV index is high, isn't it?
Exactly. We're now up to 6, which is high, about 10 to 4 p.m.
Great. Thank you very much, Jane. Now, here's what's on Sunrise tomorrow.
Thanks, Mitch. Tomorrow on Sunrise, the simple food switch is cutting kilos from your waistline.
And they add flavour to your food. See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's the way it is this Thursday, the 7th of October. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night. It's up.